Good afternoon. Welcome to Jerusalem. It's the first day of real fall. We've had some rain and some wind, and it's blowing, and the air is fresh and it's clean, and you feel this. There's new hope. There's new hope out there, folks. And we find the hope, of course, in the Torah. In Torah 60, 86, 60, 86. That's too many numbers, right? Pevav 86. Posim bo psha ketana v'soadim bo levarech shalosh pa'amim. It's an interesting, famous statement from the Talmud that tells us that on Shabbat we're supposed to take small steps to reflect on our change in attitude and perspective on the Holy Shabbat. Now, on a deeper level, when you are in touch with that level of Shabbat, that place of attachment to your higher soul, well, then you automatically take slower steps because it's just natural that way. You're not running anywhere because when you're with Hashem, you don't need to run. Everybody else runs. And it tells us, "Soadim bo levarei shlosh pamim." On Shabbat, we also have 3 meals in order to make 3 times Birkat HaMazon. Okay, that's the headline of this Torah. But the backstory, which we're going to bring out today, hopefully, is that there is this amazing force in Shabbat, especially the tzedakah of Shabbat, that is actually resembling the revelation of the light of the world to come in this world, in our days, in our time, in our bodies, in our minds. So listen closely. It's not too long. First, he gives us an important secret of the Kabbalah that tells us during the weekdays, the external forces have power. External forces are those forces that are going to drive us to non-thinking, to autopilot responses to life. Erev Shabbat, Kodesh, Bein Hashmashot, but before Shabbat on Friday afternoon, while the sun is setting, Ein Lahem Shlita Klal, then the external forces have no power anymore. They're taken away by the induction of the new light of Shabbat. The Zohar HaKodesh Omer, like the Zohar teaches, Kad Yitkadesh Yomad Kadin Yitparadu Kol Polei Avim, when a person sanctifies the holy day as is fitting, all the external forces will be separated from the holy day and the holy people who keep that day. But the essential power of the external forces is during the weekday. And this is the aspect what's called the legs, because the legs are the lowest part of the body. It conveys the idea of the most coarse of the powers that are in our soul. In other words, your mind is more refined tool than your heart, and your heart is more refined tool than your feet. And each has a different level or refinement of soul, power. And we know that during the weekday, there's this power called the legs, which we call the external forces of your body. And they don't allow a person to go in the way of Hashem. They'll get all the obstacles to doing what you want to do. Learning and praying and good deeds are much easier on Shabbat because you have that higher soul. But during the weekday, you have the external soul, and it's driving the Kedusha is much harder to access, the holy lights of that day. The Gemara tells us, now he tells us that why are the knees of the rabbi's garments worn out? Interesting statement. The Talmud always brings us these statements you have to think about like 10 times to get it. Why are the knees of the garment, of the legs, or the if they're wearing a robe also, those parts of the garment worn out? What is the wearing out part? It's because the legs are active. If you ever buy a suit, any guy knows, you buy a suit, what goes first, the pants or the jacket? Almost always the pants, because the legs are the most active, the most interactive with the physical world. You sit down, you stand up, you rub on this, you rub on that, you're nervous, you're like, whatever it is, the legs go first on the garments, and the Rebbe's using that to teach us from the Talmud. V'Shabbat Kodesh chozrim lahem koach v'halicha. And so the external forces are ruling over the legs during the week. And we see this even in just the wearing of our clothes. However, on Shabbat Kodesh, right, then we get back the power of true movement. The true movement is to go out and go to shul, go to hear a class, go out to the forest and talk to Hashem, all the good things that we do in Judaism. Right, that if you turn your legs from the weekday activities, that is, you elevate your activities on Shabbat. As our sages taught, on Shabbat it's much easier to serve Hashem. Now all of this is leading to the idea that we mentioned before, don't forget it, the human GPS that's activated a little bit on Shabbat, and in the world to come, it springs like the sun in the morning from the sky. He tells us, like a child, this idea of the walking, of the going, like a child when he begins to first walk, he still needs to take his steps with support from his parents or whoever. Nonetheless, he can't really go where he wants and how he wants when he's young. He can only take little steps. We need to strengthen the child as he learns to walk. You support him. So too, when a person begins to go in the path of Hashem on Shabbat, he needs support like that little child, learning how to walk the path of God. But and he needs another step, another power to help keep him up and keep him going until he learns better and has more power to walk. And what is the spiritual power behind that support to learn how to walk? To learn how to walk the path of God is truth. If we are truthful, we will be led. If we are truthful, we will have that powerful support to go in the path of Hashem. If we're not truthful, then we get started on the wrong foot. You've heard that phrase before. B'chinat emet. This idea of truth is the idea of that third leg, the leg that gives us support. As the sages tell us, the truth will be established. Whether or not we want it or not, the truth will be established. So a person shouldn't think he can just lie and get away with it. It's going to come out somewhere. But Shabbat itself is the idea of truth. And even if that even an unlearned person who doesn't know the laws, who doesn't have the awe of the Torah to keep us on the path at least of the 10 Commandments, that such a person on Shabbat, he won't lie. Meaning on the weekday he might, bend the truth a little bit, twist it a little bit, exaggerate here and there. Okay. But on Shabbat, no, he has this little extra soul that keeps a person, even from an unlearned person, from lying. And a learned person also, I think a lot of people need to work on this too. Okay, but when a person attaches himself to the truth, to speak the truth, it is a support to his going. In other words, when you speak the truth, you get spiritual power to keep your path straight and on the way. Which is the idea, this third leg, and so too we still need to bless the 3 festivals. On each of the 3 festivals, Sukkot, Pesach, and Shavuot, those 3 major festivals of the Jewish calendar, we make special blessings on those days. Right? So those also correspond, they're called the 3 legs, literally, that hold up the year, and to give them power, in order that we can go well. Now we're back to our original idea. By doing charity on Shabbat, which is essentially meaning inviting people over to have them for meals, and sponsoring Kiddush, and doing good deeds for people on Shabbat, that it gives, a person will give on Shabbat, just giving money for Shabbat. Where he brings the poor people to his table, because there are 2 types of charity here. There's the charity we do during the week, and These 2 levels of charity we mentioned before. The higher level of charity on Shabbat, because it's a refined day of refined soul, and the lower level of charity that's given during the weekday. U'tzedakah hu bechinat shemesh, and tzedakah, charity, which is from the same root of the word for righteousness, is an aspect of the sun. In other words, imagine there was a world called planet Earth without the sun, it wouldn't be a very warm place to be, and you would not enjoy the summer at the beach. And so God creating the sun is an act of charity to the human race, and of course to all creation itself. Needs that warmth, needs that radiation, needs that the goodness that comes from the sun, as it is written, Shemesh Tzedakah, right? The sun itself is called charity. But Tzedakah shosim b'yamei ha'chol hu keneged shemesh b'zman hazeh. And the charity that we do on the weekday is like God's charity to make the sun. It's a parallel level of giving on the weekday, that the sun gives us light and warmth every day. Tzedakah shosim b'yamei ha'chol hu keneged shemesh b'zman hazeh. And this sun, this charity, is like the weekday that we have today. Tzedakah shel Shabbat shehu mein olam haba. This charity we give on Shabbat is an extraction of the light of the world to come. This is parallel to the idea of the renewal of the sun in the future world. That the sun will then be, will be like the power of the sun that was on the first day of creation. Now this is a very hard thing to imagine. For some people, I guess if you're an astrophysicist and you look through studied the sun for a few years, you might learn a lot more about the brightness of the sun and the transitions of the sun and the flares of the sun and the perturbations of the orbits, etc. But still, what it's telling us is the sun is going to be taken back to the power of the original time of creation. So does that mean we're all going to get sunburnt because the sun is at 2 degrees hotter and this whole planet's in trouble? No. What it's talking about is the power of the sun in the soul. That your soul has this power of charity to give to others. And that power of giving is going to be expanded and increased 7 times what it is now. And what that means is that your legs that are driven by the weekdays. And then on Shabbat we rest our legs from doing the weekday activities in order to strengthen ourselves in the spiritual activities. Shehu or Shivat Yamim, and this light of the 7 days is Shemesh Hu Bechinat Tzedakah. And as we said, the sun is this idea of charity. Notein Ba'al Bechinat Raglin. The power goes to your legs. What does this mean? What does this mean? You give a coin to somebody and your legs get more powerful? Is that what it means? Simply you can do more squats at the gym? No. It means that the power of your sun, your inner guidance system, your heart is your inner sun that's guiding you, whether you know it or not. That power goes all the way into your feet, and you get guided where you need to go without even knowing it. That's why I call it the inner or the human GPS. Shenemar, and it says, Silam Tzedek Lifanav Yahalech, that righteousness will go before you, that your righteousness will push you into the world and drag you into the life experiences that you need. So righteousness is not just a static idea of being good, of doing the right things, of judging fairly. It's the idea of being guided by Hashem. The higher soul, the aspect of God that's in you, is going to show you which way to turn before you even need to turn. It's going to show you the answers to the questions before you even know to ask the question. It's going to tell you where to go, where not to go, before you even leave your house. And this is an idea, that the righteousness before him will go. The righteousness itself powers, the charity powers the going, to give your life direction. Because if you don't know what to do with your day, go out and give something to somebody. You're going to have a wonderful day. I promise you. And if you don't want to get up out of bed and you don't want to get dressed and you don't want to go out, you don't want to do anything, go give something to somebody and your day will turn around. And the sun went to shine for him. This is speaking about this week's Parsha. Jacob is getting up from his sleep and his dream of the angels going up and down the ladder, and it's Yizrach lo Hashemesh. The sun shined for him. What does that mean? What, the sun doesn't shine for everybody else and all the other creatures on the planets of this planet? Creatures on other planets, wow. Let's go there. Rashi says, for him and his needs. So can you imagine that the giant sphere, the giant fission reactor that's out in space is actually following you around, helping you out? L'rafuato mitzelato, to heal Jacob from the fight with the angel. They heal his thigh, what we call the Gira Nashe, which is, I think, the Jewish filet mignon that we don't eat, right? So Jacob was limping after he had his wrestling match with Esau, his brother, but he was healed afterwards, and that healing is coming from the sun, because the sun is not just a ball of light in the sky. It's a parallel power in the soul that gives energy within, and that leads us and guides us and heals us. And this is going to be revealed more and more and more every day of your life until everybody's going to see it in the heavens and on the earth. That the Mashiach and the whole Messianic era is all about, is revealing the inner truth of our guidance system. It's not about big bombs and big parades and big fanfare and wars and political conferences and all the words and talk that we have to go through. No, it's about each person getting the peace of his upper soul that will guide him through life with joy and purpose and meaning and accomplishment, success, love, and peace. All the best.